Hi, we have very little time. I'm sure you're all getting terribly sort of busy for Christmas, and as am I. So I'm just going to leap straight into these. It's a little selection of reviews, which are ones I think you really need to know about, and maybe good Christmas gifts. So first up, Hannah Kent Devotion. You always know with Hannah Kent that you're going to get some tremendous writing, and this one is absolutely no different. She's bang on with her descriptions of Lutheran life in Prussia in 1830s. Oh, hope I'm right there. And an amazing friendship between a young girl in this Lutheran community, which is a bit of an outcast community. They're not seen to be sort of mainstream. And into this community, she lives with her parents and her brother, and into this community comes another young girl, and they strike up an intense friendship. And I think what Kent lets us explore is the depth of that bond, how it goes, how it persists throughout everything. There is their marvelous sort of description of a journey from where they are in Prussia to coming to Australia to set up a community. She writes into nature, into spirituality, into being, and it is a very, very, very lovely read. So a great one for Hannah Kent readers of all shapes, sizes and colours. It's absolutely fantastic. Another one, that one is from Pan Macmillan. Another one we have here, Nikki Crutchley's To the Sea, which comes to us from HarperCollins. Now this is very gothic and quite very thrilling, very suspenseful. I read this in about 2 nights. I thought, oh wow, that was a bit of a humdinger. Has a lovely coastal, bleak, outcroppy feel, a family where the father of the family lived a, let's say, conventional life in a sort of city, urban, and there has been a boating or sailing accident, and he feels he has been saved by the sea. So we're wandering into this territory of sort of narcissism, control over his family, and their willingness also to embrace a completely new life that they start in this remote spot up on the cliffs overlooking the sea, and just how far that control over his family may or may not go. And when a person comes to stay in their sort of bed and breakfast, or they have guest accommodation, who is this person and what is he trying to find out? So there are 3 generations, and this young girl, focusing on mostly this young girl, Anna, who's the granddaughter of the patriarch. And absolutely atmospheric, very gripping, stunning read. That's a lovely one. Next up I have my order all over the shop. Next one up I have from a firm press, Anna Downs. Now we all know we had, actually I'll do this way so that we don't get them all confused. We had last year, we had the Safe Place. This is another one from Anna, and The Shadow House. Oh, what a cracker as well. These are all great books, so I don't have favourites. I may be lying, but anyway. An absolute stunner. She has a young mother, a teenage son from a previous marriage, and a new baby from a second marriage, and even that marriage is not really terrific. So she is trying to move away from that, moves into this eco village. So we have that lovely gated community feel. We have that kind of, anything can happen with this limited cast of characters, which is always a great recipe for building the suspense and working out who are, because I like doing this, so I really like working out who I think maybe maybe involved or the culprit. There is a mysterious woman who appears, and she's sort of named the witch. There are strange offerings left on the houses of people as sort of threats, and there had been a teen disappearance, and in a previous timeline up at the big house, and now there's another one. What is going on? You need to read it to find out. Absolutely highly recommend that one as well. So good thriller. And yet another one from our favourite, Christian White, who, as you know, has done Nowhere Child and The Wife and the Widow. So this one, I'm not actually sure anymore where my spot is, but there we go. This one Oh, he doesn't disappoint. He's done it again. He's looking into, again, a teen disappearance, but the girl who disappears is, obviously the police believe that she's just a runaway. She's got to that age where, life is a bit difficult, lives with a single mum, and the father is sort of on the scene, but not really. And local school teacher decides that something's not quite right and sets out to investigate it. And with Christian White, you have your usual suspects, the creepy emo neighbour, a neighbouring son who's sort of a bit dark and could be involved in satanic cults, and it's set in that time where there was a lot of talk about that. You have the neighbourhood watch, who may or may not get things right. He has a lot of fun, but is really giving us a cracking good read. So highly recommend that. It's not going to keep you awake with the horrors, but very well paced and a wonderful ending. So, as always, very 1980s. That was the vibe I was trying to, as I was talking, trying to remember what year it was. Next up, I have, now this is what David keeps doing to me. He gives me a book and then he says, "It's brilliant." And I'm going, what am I supposed to say to my customers? What does "it's brilliant" actually mean? So this is Graeme, Macrae, Burnet, and this one is from Text Publishing. And he did His Bloody Project. If any of you read that and liked that, you will definitely like this one. What he does best probably, and this is not David who's told me this, I had to do my own research, so it's a bit useless. It's a bit useless. He didn't help. Obviously, if he says it's brilliant, I know it's a really, really good read. And he did manage to get some more information out of him, which is that Macrae Burnet does like playing with a certain amount of fact and then creating fiction. So we have a case where there's a young woman who signs up for psychotherapy, and she's convinced that this therapist that she's going to see was actually responsible for pushing her sister into suicide. And there are notebooks, and there's a sort of a story within a story. So he plays a lot of these games with his structure, but it's a fascinating, eye-opening look at the persona she creates, and in the end how nobody really knows what's real anymore. And it had David hooked from beginning to end. So if you like something that's perhaps less straightforward in its structure, but you like a reading challenge, definitely that's one for you. Next up is, oh my goodness, an absolute blinking bear hug of a book, which totally surprised me. So by Brenton Cowell, who wrote How It Feels, from HarperCollins again. This is a book that I picked up and sort of said, an ex-NRL player, Cronulla, toxic masculinity. This is definitely a kind of male that I would like to understand a bit better, and immerse me in a culture that I might not know an awful lot about. And I was completely sideswiped by this book, because in the opening you have a lot of this banter, this male matey banter with our main character Plum, Peter the Plum Lum, who is this retired footy player, and he's all of those things I kind of expected that this character would be. And what Cowell does is he shows us that he really isn't. It's an astonishing read. If you like Trent Dalton, I'd say you're sort of in that kind of vein, or Campbell Mattison's We Are Not Men. That kind of vein, though Cowell has introduced an element into this which I thought was handled with absolute brilliance, which was our Plum has an epileptic seizure and realises that all these violent moves in his sport have led, have resulted in this propensity to epileptic seizures. So he has all these women. He does brilliant women. Loved that the ex-wife, the current girlfriend, the son's girlfriend, all his relationships are just brilliantly done. But he people come into his life, Charles Bukowski and Sylvia Plath, the poets, and they're telling him he's a poet. And boy, is he a poet. It's an absolute, it caught me completely off guard as a book, and I loved it, and I think you should read it because I think you'll love it as well. There you go. It doesn't really get better than that, does it? But, I'm not saying it does get better, but another one on my list. You better buy all of these and have just an absolute bonanza. Thestoning by Peter Papathanasiou. Now, this one comes to it from Transit Lounge, and oh, wow. I love my rural noir. As you know, I've talked to you quite a lot. I don't read crime books. Holy camellia, this one was something else. Very, very gritty. I was again lost me footing a bit with how very bleak and gritty and yet entirely human this place is. We have a town in the middle of sort of nowhere, and he doesn't really define for us where it is because it could be a lot of places, and it's called Cobb. And the fella that's coming back, the police detective sergeant, had lived there as a child. So this is kind of a trope, but he's allowing us to look at what the place might have been and what it's become, and also allows us to explore a second thread of mystery, which is so clever. He's a really likeable and terribly believable cop, and there's a very believable cast of characters. He writes straight into the indigenous versus white narrative in this town, as well as the refugee centre, which is up the road. And at the very beginning, there's a very dramatic scene where the local school teacher has been taped to a tree and stoned to death. So obviously stoning to death, you're going to say it's going to be them, or it's going to be them, or it's going to be something horrific. I would say, sort of pinioned to my seat reading that one. Can't recommend it highly enough. As a crime read, it's one of the best I've come across in a long time. So take my word. Next up, Rose Tremain. This is Lily, A Tale of Revenge. So let that give you an idea. I think this is Bloomsbury, but anyway. It's Rose Tremain, many of you will know from the Gustav Sonata and some of her other, she's an award-winning writer, top class, really. This one, I opened it and said, what is she doing? Because we have a little foundling who has been found by a copper on the beat, who's been left abandoned in a little box, and her toes were being eaten by wolves. So we have this kind of almost sensationalist, this almost penny dreadful Victorian story, and it just seems like almost out of place in a way. But what she's doing is looking at institutional power and abuse, and what we do about it, and what Lily does about someone. So she's sort of fostered out to a lovely family who are paid to do this, and not all the foster families are gorgeous, but they have to surrender the child when they become 6. And then we're really in Oliver Twist domain. She comes back into this foundling hospital. She's going to be given a skill, which eventually she uses at Belle Prettywood's wig emporium. And Belle is a nice woman who looks after her, and she's very gifted as a wig maker. So we're going to have her looking at who her mother may have been, but also who was dreadfully cruel to her in the home, in the foundling hospital, and how she decides to deal with that, and whether there's any love in her life. It is completely out of this world, and that was glorious. I love Tremain, and her writing is absolutely astonishing. And the last one up, which is from Penguin, is Elizabeth Strout. Now, you all know that Elizabeth Strout, and if you don't, well, I'm telling you, Elizabeth Strout has her My Name is Lucy Barton, and Then Anything is Possible. So we're back in the world to Lucy Barton. And I know I told you this was coming up, but I haven't told you what it's like, so I'm doing that now. It's a total gem. I think what I like about Elizabeth Strout is that she understates everything, but she says everything. she's talking about a woman later in her life. We're in our 60s, so Lucy is looking back over 2 marriages, and not just over 2 marriages, and she says this is all about William, and how William has kind of her first husband, who she has divorced, but with whom she is very close. How William hasn't always sorted himself out, or his own identity, his own family history needs a bit of exploring, and it's a wonderful thread. But it's all a way of looking at her and looking at her own relationships and looking at a woman who's gone through her life thinking that maybe, not that she was unlovable, but that she wasn't really important. Even though she was a writer, she had a very low sense of self-esteem. And it's maybe by looking at William and looking at her relationship, certainly we realise how terribly important Lucy is in her universe. It is compassionate and very clear-eyed, and a gorgeous testament to the sort of the complicity, the intimacy of a marriage that is no longer a marriage, but there's something else that remains. That was for me a sort of reassuring read in a way in these very difficult times. So there you are. I've done that lot for you. There are probably more to come, but I can't promise I'll get them all done for Christmas. But you know what I would like you to do is I'd like to, to get you all to come in and buy some of these. I would love to see you, and I would love to be able to talk to you about these and other books. So thank you for watching, and see you when I see you. If not, have a very happy Christmas.